Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone here on this wonderful, wonderful day at the library. I'm Kenneth Feinberg, Chairman of the Library Foundation, and we welcome you here today. We are honored and delighted that you are all here with us for one of this great institution's greatest and most important traditions. As we begin this ceremony, celebrating our 26th year of the Profile and Courage Award, there are a few people who must be mentioned at this time. First, my friend, and a man whose vision and work remain indispensable to leading this institution, both in front of and behind the scenes, and that is, of course, Ed Schlossberg. Where is Ed? Many of you may not know that Ed designed the Profile and Courage Award, this beautiful Tiffany lantern that we will be presenting today. Ed designed the award to symbolize a beacon of hope. And I think we all agree that, as usual, he succeeded magnificently. So we thank Ed. We are also honored to have with us the grandson of John F. Kennedy, Jack Schlossberg. Jack is a member, he might say the most important member, of the committee that chooses the Profile and Courage awardee. And he will present the award today in a few minutes. He flew all the way from Tokyo to be here, and we are delighted that he could join us as usual for this special occasion. I also give a very warm welcome to our honoree, Governor Malloy, and First Lady Kathy Malloy. We also welcome their three sons, Ben, Dannel, and Sam. And will the Malloy children and parents please stand for a moment? And we are very happy to have the impressive extended family of Governor Malloy. 6 brothers and 1 sister. Now let me tell you, 6 brothers, 1 sister, Mary Gale. The Profile and Courage Award Committee came very close to giving Mary Gale the award. But after multiple ballots, we decided to go with the governor. I'm sure Mary Gale will understand. You honor us all with your presence. I extend a special welcome to the current and former elected officials who have joined us today. Former Connecticut Senator Chris Dodd, a member of our Profile and Courage Award Committee. And one of the guiding lights of this institution, responsible for much of its success, former U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, Paul Kirk. We also welcome Lieutenant Governor Nancy Wyman of Connecticut and Congressman John Larson of Connecticut, also here today. We also welcome various state elected officials from Massachusetts, from Connecticut. We have a couple of mayors here, Luke Bronin from Hartford and Mayor of Paterson, New Jersey, Joey Torres. We welcome all elected officials who have joined us here today for this splendid occasion. Thank you all. And we are honored to have a few members of the local diplomatic corps, and we welcome them here today as well. A special thank you to 3 people who day in and day out make this place, the foundation, here at the library, smoothly run and operational. Doris Drummond, Rachel Day Floor, and Maura Hammer, who have been leading the foundation during this time of transition, and the staff of the foundation. For all they do on this day, I can tell you from personal thank you, we thank the three of them. And we extend our sincere appreciation to Jay Basanko, the acting director of the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library, and Jamie Roth, the library's deputy director, and their team for their extraordinary work, partnership, coordination, without which this place could not run. We thank Jamie and Jay. Thank you very much. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize some very special individuals who are able to join us today. We are proud this morning to have a few representatives of the over 300 refugee organizations around our nation that are doing critical work day in and day out to ensure that we remain vigilant in our duty as Americans to welcome those who have been displaced from their homeland. Can everyone from one of these distinguished organizations please stand to be recognized? And we thank, there they are. We thank you for the work that you do. You are all heroes in our book. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our distinguished chairman of the Profile and Courage Award Committee. He leads the committee with great humor, great wisdom, great courage. I think he also is a shrink part-time. But please join me in a round of applause for our loyal chairman, Al Hunt.
Ken, thank you. That was just terrific. Ken, you were so good, I thought you should have been at that White House Correspondents' Dinner last night instead of some of those speakers they had. It is my pleasure, as the chairman of the Profile and Courage Award Committee, to work with a fabulous committee in selecting the recipients of the Profile and Courage Award. They are distinguished men and women whose judgment, experience, and wisdom are indispensable to the process of selecting every recipient of the Profile and Courage Award. I was talking to one of my colleagues, Elaine Jones, earlier, and she said, sometimes we're not sure how we got there, but at the end we feel awfully good about it once we are there. But there's several who are here tonight, this afternoon rather. Senator Christopher Dodd is here. I don't know if Congresswoman Donna Edwards is here or not. She's a valuable member. Ken Feinberg, of course, who was here. Adam Frankel, Elaine Jones, Senator Paul Kirk, and David Shribman, in addition to Jack. Would you all please stand for a moment? Let's give them a round of applause. Before proceeding, I'd like to acknowledge the invaluable contributions of one member in particular. After decades of distinguished service here, Paul Kirk is retiring from the award committee this year. Paul served on the committee that selected the very first Profile and Courage recipient 26 years ago, and ever since then has been a guiding light and a dauntless champion of this award's monumental ideals. And for just as long, he's been a wise leader and a faithful steward of the Kennedy Library Foundation. Like the men and women that we honor every year, Paul is a living example of President Kennedy's singular vision of public service. And I know I speak for all of my colleagues when I say it's impossible, it is impossible to imagine this committee without Paul Kirk. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a heartfelt salute to a man. There's been no one who is more devoted to the Kennedy legacy in this library than the Honorable Paul Kirk. And he wouldn't be nearly as good without the woman sitting next to him, Gail Kirk. Every year, in addition to selecting the deserving and inspiring recipient of the Profile and Courage Award, we also choose the winner of the Profile and Courage Essay Contest for high school students, the Youth Companion program of the Profile and Courage Award. Now, the essay contest introduces a whole new generation of Americans to the concept of political courage, President Kennedy's ideals that challenges young people to achieve excellence in research and writing by communicating a story of political courage to a wider audience. This year, we received 2,070 submissions from high school students in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Canada, England, and South Korea. 82 judges spent over 800 hours reading and evaluating these essays. After 3 rigorous rounds of judging, the top 10 essays were sent to the Profile and Courage Award Committee for the final selection. And I think we all felt at the time this was far and away the strongest group, the strongest 10 essays that we had ever seen. They were just that good. So I'd like to invite all the judges who participated in this process to please stand as we acknowledge the tremendous service you have made to this program. We are also very grateful to John Hancock and the invaluable financial support it provides to make this program possible. We especially thank Marianne Ramondini and Rita German, who are here today. Would you please stand? It is now my pleasure to honor the winner of the 2016 Profile and Courage Essay Contest for high school students. Jen 2 is a junior at Egan High School in Egan, Minnesota, but studies full-time at the University of Minnesota through a special program at her high school. She arrived in the United States at age 4 from China and is an accomplished classical pianist who has soloed multiple times with the Minnesota Orchestra. Jen is fluent in German and soon will be fluent in French also, as well as Chinese and English. She discovered her passion for history last year when her U.S. history teacher challenged the class to think critically, to consider circumstances and perspectives beyond the textbook, to connect historical events to the present. When she found out about the Profile and Courage Essay Contest on her school website, she knew immediately that this is something that she wanted to enter. In her winning essay, Jen profiled Howard Baker, a former United States Senator from Tennessee, who, when he was minority leader in 1977, President Carter and Panamanian General Omar Torrijos signed the Panama Canal Treaties. Most of the public, and about 80% of self-identified Republicans, opposed this treaty fiercely. It produced incredible passions back then. The leading Republican candidates for the 1980 nomination opposed the Panama Canal Treaties. It was being proposed by a Democratic president who was not terribly popular, and it required a 2/3 vote in the United States Senate. Senator Baker traveled to Panama to find out for himself, and to investigate the situation. He came to believe that it was in the best interest of the United States and Panama to support the agreements. Senator Baker knew that leading the Senate to ratify very unpopular treaties, and they couldn't have passed without Senator Baker's support, would forever alter the course of his career. He was planning to run for president in 1980. Jen writes, before making his final decision, Baker conversed with his staff, seeking to predict the implications his stance would have on his presidential hopes for 1980. He was informed that the Republicans would never nominate him. Senator Baker replied, so be it. Baker lost the 1980 Republican nomination to Ronald Reagan. The Panama Canal treaties passed. I think people like Senator Dodd would tell you if they hadn't, it would have been a disaster for the whole continent. It's widely accepted today. The senator sacrificed his political aspirations for what he believed in to be the best course of action for the country. I covered the Panama Canal treaties, and I will say two things. I learned from Jen's essay. It was really that good, and I've never known a finer public servant than Howard Baker. So it's with great pleasure that I present this citation, accompanied by a monetary award of $10,000 to recognize Jen's outstanding research and writing on the topic of leadership and courage, as described by President Kennedy. Jen, would you come up, and I'll try to get the award. If anybody hasn't read that essay, please go to our website and read it, because it really is just spectacular. And the prize, I mentioned $10,000, it's a $5,000 cash award matched by another $5,000 cash prize from John Hancock. I think all of you were incredibly supportive of Jen, but there are four people here in particular who are even happier than most of us, and that is her parents, Rong Jing and Yang Mei Jing, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and her brother Timothy. Would you all please stand? Jack Schlossberg and I were talking beforehand. I said, boy, it really must be daunting for Timothy to have such an extraordinary older sister. But I've learned that Timothy is a great soccer player and skier and is determined to become the first Chinese-American president. So those of you who are around in 2044, get in early. This is your chance. Every student who submits an essay is required to have a nominating teacher, an educator who provides guidance and support during the research and writing process. Even though he wasn't able to join us this morning, I'd like to recognize Adam Copeland, who was Jen's nominating teacher. We have to thank him for the guidance he provided to her and are pleased to award him a John F. Kennedy Public Service Grant to encourage student leadership and civic engagement. So, Jen, would you please tell Professor Copeland how much we appreciate his efforts? Howard Baker passed away a couple years ago, but I know that he would be honored by Jen's essay. And he would be so pleased, as we are, that his daughter, Sissy, could be with us today for this celebration. Sissy Baker, would you please stand up? Sissy told Jen earlier on the essay that you really nailed it. and she did. And just let me take another 20 seconds. Just imagine in today's polarized context that a leader of the opposition party, knowing that 80% of his party members oppose something that cannot possibly pass without his support, says there are things that are more important than my political future. I mean, that was what Howard Baker did in 1978, and that's what Jen so brilliantly captured, and that's why Sissy has such an extraordinarily proud legacy. So one last thank you to all of our essay participants, and they were, the 10 we saw, I mean, 2 through 9, I think, would have won, or 2 through 10 would have won in most other years, were really just terrific, and we want to thank the families and all the teachers and school administrators who made this year's program the most successful yet. Now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Jack Schlossberg. Jack, as you know, is the son of Caroline Kennedy and Ed Schlossberg and the grandson of President Kennedy. He joined the Profile and Courage Committee 2 years ago, and he has brought with it wisdom beyond his years, a gusto and exuberance. I remember one year when we were thinking about new members, his mom said, "I want people who are every bit as good, but let's have people who are fun too." And Jack is fun. And he has made an invaluable contribution. After graduating from Yale, Jack has spent this last year living and working in Tokyo, and soon will be moving to Washington, D.C. to work for the State Department to continue something he so passionately cares about, the fight for climate change. It is an issue of such great importance to him. And Timothy, who knows, someday he just might be your predecessor. You just can't tell. But it is my great honor to introduce Jack Schlossberg, who will present the 2016 Profile and Courage Award.
Ohayou gozaimasu. Good morning, everyone. A few days ago, I left Tokyo, and it is great to be back in America. It's been almost a year since I've been in a room filled with native English speakers. But then again, we are in Boston, so English speakers may not be entirely accurate. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Al and Ken. Thank you to all the members of the Profile and Courage Selection Committee, who I serve with, and all the members of the board that are here today. And thank you to the Kennedy Library staff for your work day in and day out. This is such a strong institution because your work has made it so. My grandfather's legacy is accessible to thousands of visitors every year because of you, and it is here for his grandchildren to come, learn from, reflect upon, and pay tribute to. Last year, I stood before you all at this ceremony, a very naive college student, just days away from graduating, and none of you warned me about life after school. Soon after, I moved out of the United States to Japan, where, as Al said, I have been living and working since. I learned a lot about Japan, but the most important thing I learned was about my own country. It's something that I've been told all my life, but that I never fully grasped. I saw how people around the world see America, a beacon of opportunity, a shining light of hope in a world of uncertainty. America's historic role has been just that. America, as President Kennedy once described it, has always been a lantern in the dark for those who love freedom but are persecuted, in misery, or in need. Governor Dannel Malloy upheld this American promise when he welcomed a family of Syrian refugees into his state after they'd been turned away by another. We're so happy that the courageous family joins us here today. Please give them a round of applause. Throughout our history, groups of Americans have attacked immigrants who fled danger and destruction at home and came to America hoping for the opportunity that those of us who are born here are lucky enough to enjoy. Whether Irish or Chinese or Jewish or Japanese or Latino, our newest neighbors have all too often been greeted with a chorus of nativist ignorance. This was and remains an enduring shame. The family here today is exceptional in their bravery and courage, but they are one of many, and America has room for more. Another chapter in America's exclusionary past unfolded last fall following the despicable terrorist attacks in Paris. Half of U.S. governors, numerous leading presidential candidates, and countless others across our country called for a ban on any and all Syrian refugees. Hateful xenophobic rhetoric made its way into the mainstream, and quickly anti-Muslim sentiment became too popular. But fortunately for our country, and for the refugees fleeing violence and terror at home, some Americans stood up for our values. Governor Malloy was one such American. He took a stand against this dangerous development in our national discourse. He spoke honestly and intelligently to his constituents and our nation when he explained that America did not need to give up its principles to protect its people. He realized that our security is strengthened when our actions contradict the way that America is portrayed by those who would make themselves our enemy. It is threatened when those same people cause us to abandon our core values. Governor Malloy gave a family a home, and in doing so, he acted on a controversial issue at a time when he faced difficult challenges in his home state. A lesser public servant, a lesser man, might have remained silent and failed to summon the courage to do what he knew was right. But a profile in courage must pick an issue and a moment. America and the family we welcome here today is fortunate that the governor of Connecticut chose as he did. We honor President Kennedy today by celebrating a man whose bold action embodies the principles of my grandfather's legacy. It is my honor to present the 2016 Profile in Courage Award to Governor Dan Malloy.
Please. You get this beautiful award, and people say wonderful things about you, but they limit you to about 10 minutes of speaking. So I have some territory to cover. And I can't look at my wife because I'll start crying. Let me say that I'm thankful for so many people in this room. A leader needs followers, and a leader needs support. And I have been blessed throughout my career to have a wonderful, supportive wife and children, and people who have worked for me. And so I'm so deeply appreciative to receive this award, not simply for the work that I've done, but that we collectively on the Malloy team over the years, as it has evolved, have done time and time again. So I want to thank all of you who are here, so many of you. To the committee, and particularly to my good friend, Senator Dodd, I want to thank you for choosing to honor the actions that I took on behalf of other Americans. And so I'm very grateful to have been chosen this way. Jack, let me say to you that my life in so many ways has been impacted by Kennedy's. You may not know this about me, but I grew up the youngest of 8 children, and I was born with very serious learning disabilities and physical disabilities, which took years to overcome. Some of you know the story that as late as 4th grade, I was thought to be mentally retarded, as that term was then used. And of course, your family has stood up for those individuals so identified. My mother knew that I had some talent, and she had a belief that I would overcome those disabilities. But she also wanted to send me in a direction. And it was one that played perhaps upon one of my talents, which was to lead. And as inspiration, my mother would refer to great leaders. Although she was Irish, she thought Winston Churchill was a great leader. And she certainly talked about other presidents. But in our Irish Catholic family, we had a special place in our heart for the first Irish Catholic president, your grandfather. In his words, so many words, he inspired us as Americans, even those words which I subsequently read after his death. He continues to inspire me. His clarion call, a reminder that we shouldn't ask for ourselves, but rather should ask for others, contained in his inaugural address, resonates with all Americans to this day. In fact, we frequently remember that we shouldn't ask for ourselves, we should ask for our nation. But what we frequently forget is the president also said, then we should ask what we can do for the rest of the world. America has to be that shining place, that special place, that will never, ever fail to lead as it must. We are a land of immigrants, your grandfather wrote in one of his books. That's who we are. That's what we are. And when people will rise up to defame a religious group or a gender group or women, then Americans of good principle and strong heart need to say, not in my land, not in any land. You see, your grandfather and his brothers were an inspiration to me throughout my life. They caused me to be an advocate for civil rights and women's rights and gay and lesbian and transgender rights and religious freedom, and to do away with the death penalty in my state, and to raise my voice when people would subjugate other individuals, would bar them at the door because of the land they came from or the religion they practiced. We as Americans cannot tolerate that, and your grandfather would have been one of the first people to have said that. We're not born perfect, nor will any of us die perfect. But we should, in fact, live our lives in a continual process of trying to make ourselves better and stronger. At the same time, we pull others along with us. Example is one of the ways to do that. Your grandfather, your extended family, other politicians, including those essayed about this day, have done just that in the past. Now let me turn my attention to this one aspect of this particular event we talk about today. There's not a person in this room who hadn't thought that the issue of religious freedom had not in fact been resolved by the framers of our Constitution, at least in the first 10 amendments to that Constitution. And somehow and some way, religious persecution has been part of our history even to this day. Jack, your grandfather being the first Catholic president, was, we thought, a moment of change that would be honored throughout the remainder of our country's history. And yet, there are those who would deny the very fabric of who we are and what we are. They would roll back, perhaps to the pre-amendment days, the religious freedom that we all hold so dear. When I saw that happen, I decided to raise my voice and to make it clear that not all Americans believe that people should be barred at our door because of their religion or because of the geography from which they come. I have to say I was somewhat surprised by the reaction, both pro and con. Even in my own state, I received messages of hate. I didn't think about that when I said those words, when I said that we would welcome and honor our commitments. But yes, it happened. But in the intervening months, what has actually happened is we have rejected the rhetoric of those who would have us bar our neighbors from our nation. I'm not saying that one or two people running for president may not mention it from time to time, but overall Americans are returning to the right idea that we should honor our history, who we are, and what we have said and done in the past. There will be other occasions when we'll be called upon to do this, whether it's standing up for transgender individuals in the face of religious freedom laws that are nothing more than legal permission to discriminate. There will be other challenges to those basic freedoms that we hold dear. But let there be no doubt that there will be other Americans who will stand up and say, not in my land, not in my country, not in my city, not in my state. And we may, in fact, be drowned out from time to time. But we will return, because America is a good place that was born with terrible impediments, such as slavery. But as I said, that we all must do, to seek to resolve within our own personal selves those weaknesses. We continue to do that as a nation. So thank you. Thank you for having stood with me and supported me and made all of this possible. My mother would be proud. I know I am. I accept this tremendous award on behalf of the good people of this nation who raise their voice and say, not in our land.
I wouldn't want to be the guy to follow that speech, I guess. In Governor Malloy, we celebrate political courage, the courage to do what was right but unpopular, the courage to make a difficult choice for the greater good. In Abdullah, Fatima, and Ayam, we celebrate a different kind of courage. The courage to leave home because there was no choice. The courage to ask for help from another nation and another people. Your journey and your struggle puts life in perspective, and it reminds me of how lucky I am to be born an American. I hope your time in New Haven will be as enjoyable as the time that I spent there was. Thank you for your example, your courage, and for being with us today. Please join me in welcoming this brave family to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be with you all. I'm Fatima and I'm here with my husband Abdullah and our son Ayham. On November 17, 2015, we came to America as a Syrian refugee family. We were full of life and energy and hope for change and for a bright future. But unfortunately, as we were entering America, our hopes and dreams were let down. We were told that the governor of the state where our journey was supposed to end refused to accept us. Actually, he was one of 30 governors that rejected Syrian refugee. But suddenly, in the middle of darkness, there emerged a light, a person who was generous in spirit and who was good, who accepted us, a true humanitarian, and he came out and said, I will accept this family in my state. Not only this, he was one of the first people to welcome us personally in our home the day we arrived. He treated us with dignity. Though I know that the world has bad people, his action reminded me that the world has good people too. They are brave, they respect and protect human rights. So now I want to thank him on behalf of me and my family and all of those in the world who have felt weakness. Thank you, Governor Malloy. You allowed my family to start a new life in America. Your position is brave, especially now in American politics. There are those like you who accept and welcome us, but also there are those who don't. And I have met those too. Those are people who have wrong beliefs about Arabs and Muslims. I tell them that those Muslims you see behaving in ways that are inhuman are not bad Muslim. They are not Muslim at all. What they have taken from Islam is a mask to hide their violence behind. But even though there are those who don't understand us, I promise Governor Malloy I will live up to the trust he put in me and my family. I promise to be an ideal American family. We are learning English, my husband is looking for work, and my son is going to continue his education. This country is our future. We love this country, and we will defend it and work to improve it. And of course, all of this is possible due to IRIS, the organization that resulted us. IRIS gave us love, security, and care, and became the family to us. We refugees are good people whose morals and religion commands them towards good. We would never hurt anyone. IRIS provides us with support after we can no longer live in our own countries. All of us refugees run from war, hoping to find security and freedom here in America. So I hope that the whole world learn from what is happening in Syria. I hope they learn to love each other and to respect each other's rights. Connecticut residents can raise their heads high because they have a leader who does that. I hope other leaders and people everywhere follow his lead. In that spirit, I hope we use this time today to think about those dying in Aleppo, those who can't be here like me and my family, and to call on our leaders to work on this crisis with humanity rather than only politics. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I'd like to ask Jack and Ed Schlossberg and the governor and this very special family to gather up front here for one more photo with the award and one more generous round of applause. Everybody remain seated. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to join the celebration at a reception just behind you here in this beautiful pavilion. Thank you all. A wonderful day for everybody. Thank you.
Dannel, I mean, Sam, Ben, Ben, Dannel.